The topic is Spellbound in Early Childhood Education, and we're talking to the author of Spellbound, Miss Mary Williams. And of course, Miss Williams, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about this book, Spellbound. As a matter of fact, we've had many positive comments in reference to it, and it was the book, more than anything, that sort of convinced us that we ought to try to at least give our audience an opportunity to have access to this book. And I think we said earlier that it's a book about children, but it's not written for children. It's for adults in terms of how to deal with children. Let's talk. Tell us about that book.
Okay, Spellbound is a delightful collection of stories, and these stories are written on around second grade level, and it can go all the way up. But mostly, I wrote these stories to appeal to children who we might refer to as reluctant readers. And I wanted them, and when I speak of reluctant readers, I'm speaking of children on an upper grade level, like maybe 5th or 6th grade. And sometimes I have noticed in working with them that when the teacher calls on them to read, and if they have a reading problem, they just won't read. You know, they'll say, I don't want to. And then the teacher doesn't understand. They think the child is being kind of rebellious.
Difficult.
Right, yeah, difficult. And the child at that age and at any age does not want to be embarrassed in front of their peers. They don't want to hear them kind of shuffling and stuttering and trying to miss in a word. And they don't want the teacher to tell them. And they definitely don't want the other children to tell them. So they want to be able to go all the way through. So when I wrote this book, it took me a while to write it because it's written in a way that all the basic sight words, of course, are employed. But when I reached the words with syllabication skills, I have maybe just a few words that are 4 syllables. The rest of them are maybe 3 syllables. Yet the words are interesting, vocabulary is interesting enough that would make the children, if it's something they don't understand, they could get the meaning of it from the other words in the sentence. Okay, I found out that children like dialogue. So with me being in drama, I have a lot of dialogue, and I'm good with the dialogue. And I start out with a hard punch, because when children go to the library and you know, to pick up a book, they open it up and they just see something, and if they don't see any dialogue on that first page, they'll put it back. But if they see something that's really catching right at the beginning of the story, then they'll go on and read the story. Now, the stories I have within Spellbound, you wonder why it's called Spellbound. Spellbound is not only do you have stories that are incorporated, that are more or less mystifying, but you also, I use the fact that I could use storytelling to spellbound the kids in a way that they would learn. So these stories are written in such a way that the children will use the same technique and be able to grasp exactly what the stories are saying. I have tried most of these stories out because I'm a storyteller. So being a storyteller by nature, sometimes I go from school to school and read the stories. So I learn a lot from what the children think about the stories, or what I need to add or take away. So this is the way Spellbound is written. Spellbound has some nonfiction in it, believe it or not. It has 11 stories. It's a book that incorporates 11 stories. It has nonfiction, so that's something that's going to be informative. You know, they can read those stories and they'll learn something about how to go on a deep sea fishing trip. You know, how the killdeer bird stunt. They'll learn what this is about and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Spellbound has magical stories in it. Spellbound has stories that dealing with problems and adversities that children have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, the struggles that they have to encounter, things that they can do nothing about. And they learn how to use the process of communicating with others, such as in one story about a little boy and a mom was had an illness, a drug problem, and they were afraid to say anything about it. Well, they were suffering. So, but the mother said, don't tell it because they'll take you away from me, and place you in a foster home. So the children didn't know what to do. So they were really rearing themselves. And you know, when a writer writes, they write according to something that they have.
Their own experience.
Right experience. So I've had kids that have come to me with little problems like this. So what I would do is I would use the process of writing. So everybody had a journal, and this is the way this story ends. The teacher gave the children a journal, so they would write down their wants and their wishes and their sad moments and everything that they wanted to in their journal. Well, naturally, teachers check those journals every day. So this little boy and his sister wrote down that their mama had a problem, and they received immediate help. So that's the way the story ends, that the mother received help, the children received help, they live with the grandmother, and it has a happy ending.
And there's greater communication between all of them.
Right, right. So they could use that, that was a way of communicating, and then the mother was happy. But sometimes when we're dealing with children, sometimes they don't know what to do. So I try to write this story dealing with that so that this would help somebody else that might read the story, that would know how to handle a problem of that nature. Spellbound is also contains stories that are short. You know, and then I'm thinking of the reluctant reader.
Okay.
Because a reluctant reader, you know, kids, when they reach about 1st or 2nd grade, and if they can read, you know, they say, I want a chapter book, Miss Williams. I'm getting me a chapter book.
Okay.
A chapter book, you know, is usually a book that has maybe 5 chapters. I mean, it's like, you know, we would say thick book. They're not looking for those little bitty books. They call them baby books. I don't want that baby book. I want a chapter book. So, and then if you're thinking of a reluctant reader, this is sort of like a chapter book, but it has different stories. So they can choose a book like this from the bookshelf or have it at their home, and then choose one story. So if the teachers, and I'm trying to get this book incorporated in the school system.
Good, okay.
So if the teachers use this as a supplementary book, then when she brings her little children around her in the circle, and then she calls on a child that may have a reading problem, then he can choose a short story and go right through it without having to stumble and, you know, and the kids trying to punch him and tell him.
And that builds up confidence.
Yeah, that builds up confidence. And plus they remember what they're reading because everything in there is really high interest information. One is about a 15-year-old that received her driver's permit, license or permit, I think it was permit, and she was not supposed to go in a car. So see a child, an adult would read that. And so she took the car out, and then she went down a street that she was not familiar with, and someone jumped on a car.
Okay, and of course, Ms. Williams, let me break for this final commercial break, at which time we'll come back and we'll give you an opportunity to talk about how this book has been received among many publics. The topic is Spellbound.